Not all who are noticed speak loudly. Not all who lead walk in front, and not all who are magnetic seek to be seen. Some people carry a presence that is quiet but undeniable. They don't need to announce themselves because their energy speaks first. A steady gaze, a composed posture, a calm that refuses to be shaken. And in a world that constantly shouts for attention, this stillness feels like power. You've probably met someone like that. They walk into a room, and something changes. Not because they're dressed to impress, not because they're trying to entertain, but because they're anchored, comfortable in their own skin, secure in their values, and uninterested in performing. That's the paradox of silent attractiveness. It's not loud, but it echoes. It doesn't demand attention, but it earns respect. Not through volume, but through presence. Not through charm, but through alignment. Stoic philosophers understood this centuries ago. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality, but the quietly attractive suffer less because they waste no energy pretending to be someone they're not. They've stopped chasing applause. They've stopped reacting to every opinion, and in doing so, they've become magnetic. Because nothing is more rare or more compelling than a person who doesn't need to be liked, to be respected, who doesn't need to prove anything, to be powerful." In this video, we're not talking about how to get attention. We're exploring something far more valuable: how to cultivate inner gravity. You'll learn 11 habits drawn from Stoic wisdom and real-life experience that will transform how people feel around you and how you feel within yourself. These are not tactics. They're transformations. They're practices that, done with quiet consistency, build a kind of strength that doesn't need to explain itself. From silent elegance to emotional intelligence, from the discipline of self-care to the softness of compassion, this is the path to becoming someone people remember. Not for how much you said, but for how you made them feel. So if you're tired of trying to stand out by being louder, maybe it's time to start standing still and letting your presence speak. Let's begin. Habit number 1. Authentic independence. The quiet power of belonging to yourself. There's a particular kind of person who doesn't chase approval because they've already made peace with who they are. They don't need to announce themselves. Their presence speaks louder than performance. And when they walk into a room, they don't look around to see who notices them. They observe the space like someone who already knows they belong. Not because anyone gave them permission, but because they gave it to themselves. That is authentic independence. Not the noisy kind that screams, "I don't care what anyone thinks." That's still tethered to the opinions it claims to reject. No, this is quieter, deeper, grounded in self-respect. It's what happens when you stop measuring your worth through someone else's mirror. In a culture obsessed with validation, likes, praise, attention, this kind of independence is revolutionary. Because it says, I don't need to be seen to have value. I don't need to be followed to lead. I don't need applause to move forward. The Stoics knew this intimately. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life." But he didn't mean physical freedom. He meant the ability to live on your own terms, to rise above the need for approval and act in alignment with your principles, whether the world agrees or not. That's the kind of independence that radiates power. And here's the paradox. The more you stop seeking attention, the more people are drawn to you. Why? Because they sense something rare in you, someone who doesn't flinch under pressure, someone whose confidence is rooted, not borrowed, someone who could walk alone and never feel lost. True independence isn't about isolating yourself. It's about showing up whole, so that any connection you form, whether romantic, social, or professional, is built on mutual respect, not silent desperation. You become the kind of person who isn't afraid to be alone, because solitude doesn't scare you. It strengthens you. So how do you cultivate this? Start small. When faced with a decision, ask, am I doing this to impress someone or because it aligns with who I am? Spend time alone not to escape people, but to reconnect with yourself. Journal, reflect, walk without your phone. Get quiet enough to hear your own thoughts again. And remind yourself daily, approval is fleeting, but alignment is forever. Because the most attractive person in any room is the one who doesn't need it. They're already at peace, with or without applause. That is the essence of authentic independence. And that's where silent attractiveness begins. Habit number 2, silent elegance. The quiet power of poise. She walked into the cafe wearing no more than a simple sweater and jeans, no dramatic entrance, no loud laugh. Yet heads turned, not out of obligation, but because there was something settled about her. Like she belonged to herself. Like she had nothing to prove, and yet proved everything by simply being. That is silent elegance. In a world where everyone is shouting to be seen, the one who whispers but carries presence is the one we remember. Silent elegance is not about style, it's about substance. It is the quiet strength that radiates from someone who is deeply grounded in who they are. The Stoics might call it euthymia, a calm confidence born from alignment between one's values and one's actions. You don't need perfect posture or an expensive coat to project elegance. You need congruence, the harmony of soul and self. This kind of presence isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. It invites it. Not through words, but through gestures. The way you carry yourself in discomfort. The way you speak, slowly, intentionally, when others rush to fill silence. The way you offer someone your full attention without reaching for your phone. That is elegance. That is composure. That is power in restraint. Think about the people who inspire you most. Are they the loudest in the room? Or the ones who speak the least, but make every word count? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." The elegant person doesn't need to declare who they are. Their presence does it for them. Their tone is calm, their movements purposeful, their energy settled. It's in the stillness between sentences, in the warmth of a slight smile, in the way they listen without rushing to speak. This isn't about being emotionless. It's about being emotionally in control. Silent elegance means knowing when to speak, and more importantly, when not to. It means carrying yourself with grace, even when the world around you is losing its balance. Not as a performance, but as a byproduct of your inner peace. So how do you cultivate this? You begin by observing yourself. Notice your posture, your pace, your tone. Are you rushing? Are you reactive? Or are you anchored in the moment? Slow down. Breathe deeper. Speak with intention. Walk like your time matters, not because it's rushed, but because it's sacred. Choose clothes that reflect how you want to feel, not how you want to impress. Treat every person you meet with dignity, especially the ones who can't do anything for you. Respect, after all, is not a performance, it's a habit. And when conflict arises, let your presence be your response. Elegance doesn't scream. It doesn't need to. Because at the end of the day, the most attractive people are not the ones who are seen the most. They're the ones who are felt the most, without ever raising their voice. That is silent elegance. And in a noisy world, it is a superpower. Habit number 3, subtle sophistication. It's often the smallest things that leave the deepest impression. A faint scent, a well-chosen shirt, the way you pause before speaking, not out of hesitation, but intention. Subtle sophistication doesn't shout. It doesn't beg for attention, it whispers. And yet, it's the whisper everyone hears. In a world addicted to oversharing and overexposing, those who master the art of the understated become a quiet force. You don't need extravagance to be remembered. You only need awareness, because elegance is not an accident. It is an accumulation of intentional details. Let's start with scent. Not the kind that overwhelms a room before you even enter it, but the kind that lingers in memory long after you've left. A signature fragrance, worn with restraint, says something without saying anything at all, that you are mindful, that you care. Not about attention, but about presence. The Stoics believed in harmony between one's outer conduct and inner world. Seneca once wrote, "Let your outward appearance be simple and dignified, reflecting the serenity of your mind." Subtle sophistication is the embodiment of that ideal. Cleanliness, composure, grace in motion. It's not about being fancy, it's about being deliberate. This also extends to how you dress, not expensive, but intentional. You don't need designer labels, you need clarity. You wear your values, not a price tag. Simplicity, when done right, is the loudest form of confidence. It says, "I don't need to impress you. I already respect myself." Then there's voice. Not just what you say, but how you say it. A calm tone, thoughtful pauses, measured words. All signs of a mind at peace with itself. And let's not forget presence. Your ability to make others feel calm, seen, safe. Not because of anything flashy, but because you bring stillness into a noisy world. When someone sees you, really sees you, and notices that everything about you is intentional yet effortless, you become unforgettable. That's what subtle sophistication offers, not a mask but a mirror of who you truly are. Authentic, measured, self-aware, and it's not something you fake, it's something you cultivate. Start with the details. Choose a scent that feels like you. Declutter your wardrobe and keep only what fits your energy. Pay attention to posture, eye contact, how you sit, how you hold space for others. Let every action reflect quiet dignity, because the most attractive people aren't trying to be anything. They simply are. Refined not by effort but by clarity, by presence, by restraint. And in a world full of noise, that level of refinement becomes its own kind of power, the kind that needs no explanation, no spotlight, only your presence. Wabit Sobon. In a world constantly distracted, full presence has become a superpower. We've all been in conversations where someone nods while checking their phone, where words are exchanged but connection is absent. It feels hollow, as if your presence is being tolerated, not cherished. Now contrast that with someone who looks you in the eye, listens not to respond, but to truly understand, who puts away their devices, quiets their mind, and simply is there, fully. No rush, no agenda, just a calm presence that says, "You matter right now." That is silent charisma, and it's rare. Because being present takes effort, not in appearance but in attention. In an age of multitasking, full presence is a radical act of respect. The Stoics knew this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." To them, being present wasn't just a nice gesture, it was a discipline. Because presence is power. It means you are not lost in regret or hijacked by anxiety. You are here, fully. And that makes people feel seen, safe, and honored. When you're fully present, you don't need impressive words or grand gestures. People feel your energy. They sense that this moment is real, that you're not just waiting to talk, but actually hearing them. And it shows in everything. The way you tilt your head when listening, how your gaze doesn't wander, how your silence carries weight, not awkwardness. You shine, not because you're loud, but because your attention is pure. And in a noisy world, that's magnetic. Here's the truth. Presence cannot be faked. You can't pretend to care while mentally checking out. People feel the disconnect, but when you choose to be there, wholly and intentionally, something sacred happens. You create connection, trust, space for others to unfold. So how do you cultivate this? Start small. When someone speaks, pause before replying. Don't rehearse your answer, absorb theirs. Put your phone away during conversations. Resist the urge to multitask. Practice mindfulness even in silence. Notice your breath, your posture, your surroundings, anchor yourself. And when you're with someone, be with them, not just physically, but emotionally. Ask deeper questions, reflect what you hear. Stay with their story without jumping to yours. This habit transforms not just how people see you, but how they feel around you. You become a mirror that reflects their importance, a space where they can exhale. And that's unforgettable. Because while charm fades and noise blurs, the feeling of being truly seen, that lingers. Presence, when cultivated, is more than just a social skill. It's an act of grace, a quiet invitation for others to feel human again. So be that person, the one who doesn't try to impress but simply shows up, fully, sincerely, and without distraction. In doing so, you become more than attractive. You become grounding, healing. You become unforgettable. Habit Daksha 5. A touch of mystery. We live in a time where people broadcast their lives with relentless transparency. Every meal, every opinion, every emotion, on display, wrapped in filters and hashtags. But in this sea of oversharing, there is something rare, something magnetic about restraint, mystery, a touch of the unknown. Not because you're hiding something, but because you've mastered the art of keeping what's sacred, sacred. You don't need to announce your next move, explain every decision, or narrate your inner monologue to the world. You know who you are, and those who are meant to understand you will, in time. And that time, the space between curiosity and revelation, is where attraction grows. Mystery doesn't mean being distant, it means being intentional. You speak, but you don't spill. You share, but you don't surrender everything. You leave room for others to wonder, not in confusion, but in fascination. Think of a great novel. If the ending is revealed in chapter 1, do you still read with the same hunger? That's the power of mystery. It invites attention, not by demanding it, but by quietly holding something back. A question unanswered, a smile that hints at more, a depth that isn't poured out but slowly revealed, like a candle in the dark. The Stoics understood the strength of silence, of simplicity, of being unfazed by the need for constant validation. Epictetus once said, "Be silent, or let your words be worth more than silence." A man or woman of mystery is not withholding, they are choosing. Choosing to live with depth, not performance. Within a clarity, not external applause. So how do you cultivate this mystery? Start by reclaiming your privacy. Not everything needs to be shared, not every thought, plan, or vulnerability. Let some things belong only to you. Speak when your words add value. Stay silent when they don't. Next, live a life rich in substance, not just stories to post, but experiences to hold close. Read, explore, grow in private, develop passions that don't need to be advertised. Let your presence hint at a layered life, not a loud one. When others ask, reveal just enough. Not to tease, but to trust. Mystery should never be manipulation. It's about preserving your soul's quiet corners from public consumption. And most of all, be okay with not being understood right away. Because when you carry a quiet confidence, when you don't rush to prove yourself, the right people will lean in. They'll ask, listen, return. Not out of entitlement, but out of genuine respect. They'll want to know more, not because you shouted for attention, but because your silence whispered something deeper. In a world of noise, mystery is elegance. In a culture obsessed with exposure, your restraint becomes your signature. So leave a little unsaid. Let them wonder. Let them lean closer. Because sometimes, what you don't say says everything. Thank you for spending your time with us on this journey into silent strength and stoic presence. If you found value in what you've heard so far, consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone who appreciates depth over noise. Your support fuels this wisdom. Habit for 6. Cultural wisdom. In a room full of opinions, the rarest presence is the one who listens before they speak, the one who doesn't just wait for their turn, but leans in, genuinely curious, ready to understand, not just respond. That presence comes from cultural wisdom, a quiet habit that transcends appearance and earns true admiration. Cultural wisdom isn't about flaunting how much you know about foreign lands, nor is it about dropping impressive facts to seem well-read. It's about humility, about being open to perspectives beyond your own upbringing, beyond your beliefs, and sometimes even beyond your comfort. It's easy to stay inside the walls of your worldview, to think that your experiences are universal truths. But Stoicism at its core teaches the opposite. It reminds us that our lens is not the lens, that wisdom begins when we loosen the grip on certainty and become students of the human condition, not just in theory, but in practice. Seneca once wrote, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. But kindness without understanding can be hollow." True respect requires depth, the kind that comes from being willing to ask, to learn, to grow. When you carry cultural wisdom, you enter conversations with depth. You don't rush to impose your view. You ask questions that matter. You connect not just through shared opinions, but through a shared sense of humanity. Imagine a dinner table conversation. Everyone is speaking about the same issue, economy, relationships, art, but from vastly different angles. The culturally wise person doesn't feel the need to dominate. Instead, they draw threads between ideas, link one culture's insights to another's, and offer reflections that expand the whole dialogue. That's silent magnetism. So how do you cultivate it? Start by reading. Not just what confirms your views, but what challenges them. Explore histories that aren't your own. Watch films in other languages. Engage with those who see the world differently. Not to debate, but to understand. Travel when you can. And when you can't, travel through conversations. Every person carries a world inside them. The more you explore, the more nuanced your thinking becomes, and the richer your presence grows. In the end, cultural wisdom doesn't make you loud. It makes you layered. And that quiet depth, that ability to sit across from anyone with respect, openness, and clarity, is one of the most attractive qualities you can ever cultivate. Not everyone will notice it instantly, but the right people always will. Habit number 7, compassion. A quiet warmth that stays in a fast-moving world obsessed with status, speed, and success. There's something quietly powerful about a person who simply cares, not loudly, not to be seen, but genuinely, consistently, patiently. Compassion is a kind of soft strength. It doesn't shout, it doesn't seek applause, but it lingers in the hearts of those who feel it, long after words are forgotten. We often think attraction comes from charisma, wit, or power. But the truth is, what draws people in and keeps them there is how you make them feel. And when you make someone feel safe, seen, and valued, that's when you become unforgettable. True compassion isn't about grand gestures or performative kindness. It's in the little things. The way you hold space for someone's pain without rushing to fix it. The way you remember small details others overlook. The calm reassurance in your presence when someone is falling apart. It's a presence that says, "You don't have to impress me, you're already enough." The Stoics are often misunderstood as cold or emotionally distant, but look closer. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Kindness is invincible." And Epictetus taught that we are here for one another, that our nature is communal, built for connection. Compassion, to the Stoic, is not weakness. It is mastery of ego, of judgment, of selfishness. It's the ability to understand that everyone is fighting battles we cannot see. And instead of reacting with cynicism or irritation, we respond with patience, with grace, with strength. Because let's be honest, it's easy to be kind when people are kind to you. But what about when they're rude, tired, lost in their own storms? That's where real compassion shines. Not in agreement, but in understanding. Not in enabling, but in empathizing. It's not about letting others walk over you, it's about walking with them without losing yourself. Imagine a co-worker snapping at you on a stressful day. Your instinct may be to fire back, defend your pride. But compassion pauses. It asks, "Is this really about me? Or are they carrying a burden I can't see?" And just like that, you shift the energy in the room. You de-escalate instead of fueling the fire. You listen instead of lashing out. You respond instead of reacting. This doesn't mean you tolerate disrespect. Boundaries matter. But you don't need to fight everything that offends you. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is show restraint and care. So how do you cultivate compassion? Start by practicing it on yourself. Let go of the voice that says you're never enough. Treat your own mistakes with understanding, not shame. Because the more gently you treat your own heart, the more gently you'll treat others. Then extend that warmth. Be the person who listens, not to respond, but to understand. Slow down in your conversations. Ask how someone's really doing. Offer kindness without expectation. Because in the end, no one forgets how you made them feel when they were vulnerable. Not your confidence, not your cleverness, but your warmth. That's the silent glow of compassion. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't fade. It builds connection, soul to soul. And in a world starving for realness, your quiet heart might just be the most attractive thing of all. Habit, estimate, joy and humor, the light that cuts through the fog. There's something magnetic about a person who knows how to smile, not the forced smile for social approval, but the kind that rises from deep within. A smile that says, "Life may be hard, but it hasn't broken me." Humor is often mistaken as mere entertainment, but in truth, it's a form of wisdom, a lightness of spirit that only comes when you've made peace with the heaviness of life. In a world where people wear seriousness like armor, there's quiet strength in those who can still laugh, even when things don't go their way, especially when things don't go their way. Because when you can smile in adversity, you're telling life, "I may not control you, but you don't control me either." The Stoics knew this well. They didn't advocate for a life void of joy. On the contrary, they sought euthymia, the cheerful serenity that arises from living in alignment with your nature. Seneca himself said, "A cheerful spirit makes light of misfortune." And isn't that what we admire in others? The friend who cracks a gentle joke in the waiting room of a hospital. The parent who turns a power outage into a candlelit game night. The co-worker who shrugs off setbacks with a wink and a witty remark. These people aren't naive, they're strong. They've chosen to carry joy not because life is easy, but because they've learned it's too short to carry bitterness instead. Joy is not the absence of pain. It's the decision to not let pain steal everything. And humor? It's joy's way of speaking out loud. It softens tension, bridges awkward moments, and reminds us we're all just figuring it out together. A shared laugh makes two people feel less alone, even if only for a moment. But here's the key. Don't try to be funny. Don't force charm or wear a mask of constant positivity. That's not stoic. That's performative. Instead, cultivate a sense of play. Find humor in your own mistakes. Smile at life's absurdities. Laugh without apology, not to deflect pain, but to walk through it with your head high and your heart open. When you carry that energy, people feel it. They exhale around you, they trust you. Because joy isn't just attractive, it's contagious. So be the person who reminds others to breathe, to laugh, to live. Not with noise, but with a twinkle in your eye. Not to impress, but to uplift. Not because life is perfect, but because despite everything you still choose joy. And that choice, that quiet rebellion against cynicism, is one of the most radiant things you can wear. Habit number 9, self-care, the quiet power of respecting yourself. In a world obsessed with external achievement, self-care is often dismissed as vanity or indulgence. But in the philosophy of the Stoics, and in the quiet dignity of those who carry themselves with inner strength, self-care is something far more noble. It is a silent act of self-respect. You don't tend to your body and mind just to look good or to impress. You do it because your body is your vessel, your mind, your compass, and your spirit the silent engine that moves your life forward. When you care for yourself, consistently, intentionally, and without needing applause, you send a powerful message to the world. I value this life, and I'm not going to squander it. There is nothing loud about true self-care. It's in the quiet discipline of choosing whole foods when fast food tempts you. It's in the decision to rest, not as an escape, but as a strategy. It's in waking up early, not because the world expects it, but because you promised yourself you would. Self-care isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. Are your habits supporting the life you say you want to live? Do your daily rituals honor the values you claim to believe in? The Stoics believed that a well-ordered body reflected a well-ordered mind. Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled an empire, still found time to write in his journal, reflect on his behaviors, and keep his personal discipline intact. He didn't see it as optional, he saw it as essential. Because when your world feels chaotic, your routines become your sanctuary. That's why true self-care must be holistic. Yes, it's about hygiene, posture, clean clothes, and the subtle scent of someone who pays attention. But it's also about what you consume mentally, what you watch, what you read, the people you allow into your orbit. It's about protecting your energy, knowing when to say no, and making peace with rest, not as a weakness, but as fuel. Let's be clear. Self-care is not selfish. It's the foundation that allows you to show up for others, not from depletion, but from overflow. And this quiet, consistent effort to nourish yourself, it doesn't scream for attention, but it does create something magnetic. People are drawn to those who are composed, who glow from the inside out, who walk into a room and radiate not noise, but groundedness. You don't have to explain yourself. Your presence says it all. I've taken care of me, so I can show up fully for this moment. So ask yourself, what small act of self-care can you commit to today? Not to prove anything to anyone, but to honor your own worth. And then do it, not loudly, but consistently. Because when you care for yourself with grace and intention, you carry a quiet power. A strength that doesn't need to speak because it's already felt. Rabbit, Archer 10. Emotional intelligence, Mustow. Calm is a superpower. There's a kind of strength that doesn't need to raise its voice. It doesn't slam doors, doesn't interrupt, doesn't overreact. It listens more than it speaks. And when it speaks, it does so with clarity, calm, and conviction. That strength is called emotional intelligence. And in a chaotic world, it is nothing short of a superpower. We often think intelligence is about knowing facts, solving equations, or sounding impressive in a conversation. But the Stoics knew, and modern psychology confirms, the real test of intelligence is how well you govern your emotions when the world stops making sense. It's easy to stay calm in a quiet room. It's harder to stay calm when someone disrespects you, or when your plans fall apart, or when someone's careless words cut deeper than they should have. But that moment, that fragile second between stimulus and response, that's where emotional mastery is forged. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't being poetic. He was giving you a weapon. You don't control the storm, but you control how you sail through it. Emotional intelligence means reading the moment before reacting to it. It means asking, what's actually happening here? What is mine to carry, and what belongs to someone else's storm? It's the courage to stay silent when provoked, the wisdom to speak when silence becomes avoidance. It's choosing peace, not because you're passive, but because you refuse to be pulled into every storm that passes by. In practice, this habit starts small. It's taking a deep breath before replying to that rude message. It's noticing your rising anger and letting it pass like a wave, instead of letting it crash into someone else. It's recognizing when someone's outburst is not about you and refusing to absorb what was never yours. And the more you practice, the more powerful you become. Because calm is not weakness. It's control. It's command over the only kingdom you'll ever truly rule. Your inner world. People feel this. They're drawn to it. They trust the person who doesn't flinch under pressure, who doesn't crumble in conflict. That presence, that stillness in a storm, it's magnetic, it's unforgettable. So the next time life pushes your buttons, pause. Ask yourself, do I want to react or respond? And remember, you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to match their chaos with your own. Let them spin, you stay still, because emotional intelligence isn't loud, but it is powerful. And in a noisy world, your calm presence might be the loudest voice in the room. Habit test 11. Consistency and reliability. Be the one who shows up in a world where people say one thing and do another, where promises are thrown around like confetti, and commitment seems like an old-fashioned concept. Being someone who is consistent and reliable is nothing short of revolutionary. You don't need to be loud to be trusted. You don't need to make grand gestures to be respected. You just need to keep showing up, day after day, quietly, faithfully, without needing applause. Because there is something magnetic about the person who says they'll be there, and is. The one who follows through. The one whose words mean something because their actions always back them up. Stoicism isn't about emotional detachment, it's about discipline. And discipline is nothing but consistency over time. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations for an audience. He wrote them for himself, day after day, reminding himself of who he wanted to be. That's what reliability looks like. It's not performance, it's a practice. And here's the secret. People don't trust you because of your charisma. They trust you because of your consistency. You become attractive, not because you're flashy, but because your presence is steady, predictable in the best way, safe, not boring, stable, not stiff. Let's face it, we live in a culture obsessed with excitement and spontaneity. But deep down, people crave safety, in relationships, in work, in friendships. And nothing builds that safety like reliability. The friend who checks in, even when they're busy. The colleague who always meets a deadline. The partner who doesn't ghost when things get hard. They might not post it on Instagram, but they build something no algorithm can fake. Respect. Reliability isn't about being perfect. It's about being there. When you say yes, you mean it. When you commit, you follow through. When life gets chaotic, you don't vanish. You adjust, but you don't disappear. Think about this. Who do you call in a crisis? Who do you trust with something delicate? It's never the one who talks the most. It's always the one who's shown up again and again, even when it wasn't convenient. You don't have to promise the world. Just do what you said you'd do, especially when no one's watching. Start small. Be on time. Keep your word. Make fewer promises, and honor every single one. Let your consistency become your silent signature. Let your reliability become your quiet power. Because while others are busy trying to impress, you'll be the one people respect, and in time they may not remember every word you said, but they'll never forget that you showed up when it mattered. That's how trust is built. That's how quiet strength is earned. That's how you become, without ever raising your voice, someone others can count on. And that is silently, profoundly attractive. In a world obsessed with noise, with likes, clicks, and flashy performances, silent attractiveness is a quiet rebellion. It doesn't shout. It doesn't beg for attention. It simply is, steady, grounded, and unforgettable. Because at the end of the day, what truly draws people in isn't the loudest voice in the room, but the calmest energy. It isn't perfection. It's presence. It's not charisma that fades when the lights go off. It's consistency that lasts, even when no one is watching. These 11 habits we've explored are not quick fixes. They're not about faking charm or memorizing lines. They are principles, stoic, timeless, human, that help you become someone whose life speaks for itself. You don't need to change who you are. You just need to return to who you were before the world told you to chase validation. Start small. Wake up tomorrow and choose one thing. Maybe it's standing a little taller, carrying yourself with calm. Maybe it's putting your phone away and being truly present during one conversation. Maybe it's setting one boundary, gently but firmly. Or maybe it's simply listening with your whole heart. Whatever it is, let it be intentional, because silent attractiveness is not about adding more to yourself. It's about stripping away what's fake, so what's real can shine through. People won't always remember what you wore, how you spoke, or even what you did, but they'll remember how they felt around you. Did they feel seen, heard, respected, safe? That's the mark of true magnetism. That's the power of living with integrity, emotional intelligence, quiet joy, and unwavering presence. So ask yourself, what kind of presence do I bring into a room? Do I fill it with calm or chaos, with ego or empathy? Because in a world full of noise, the person who walks in with quiet confidence and needs nothing often ends up with everything. The world is already loud. Your stillness, your grace, your depth, that's your superpower. And when you begin cultivating these habits, even in the smallest ways, you're not just becoming more attractive to others. You're becoming more aligned with the strongest, most grounded version of yourself. That, my friend, is where the real glow begins. And you don't have to say a word. If this message spoke to something deep within you, don't let it end here. Take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs this quiet reminder today. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful content rooted in timeless Stoic wisdom. Let's build a community grounded in depth, presence, and personal growth. Together, every small action matters. Thank you for walking this journey with us.